Hey guys, this video is going to be a comparison between the BeastX Mini and the ULX Sakura. Honestly, it's more of a review, but in my opinion, it really has a direct competitor, and it really matters a lot. That is the BeastX Mini. So, as you can already probably see, what I have plugged in right now is my BeastX Mini. And that's not by coincidence, that actually happens to be the mouse I prefer using a little bit more. But let me explain why. There's a lot of nuances, and I'll be honest, it's not like it was not a very obvious battle. It wasn't very obvious that this one was my primary. In fact, I went back and forth between these so much that to compare the two to really see what I'd like. And I got the same pair of skates with them. I have the Ultra Glide Ultra Silencer skates. They're called silencers, not silencers. I don't know why. It's a whatever, minor nitpick. But let me compare these two mice and give you my general opinion. So the biggest, how to explain this? Let's see. So the first thing to consider in my opinion is, well, I guess price. Right, the BeastX Mini is about $145, not paying for shipping or anything, while the ULX Competition Sakura Edition, or at least ULX Sakura, is going to be about $179 if I recall. I don't know. Regardless, it costs more by like 20-30 bucks. And in my original video, I kind of commented how, ironically, the ULX feels like the bootleg of the BeastX Mini. And my statement still kind of stands, to be honest. It doesn't feel as solid. You can easily bend the bottom base even a little, like it just doesn't feel, and like this too, you just can't do that. Obviously they're different, and in my opinion, there is a use case as to why you might prefer this over this, and that's if you're like a palm grip and this bothers you, because you can very much notice this versus this. Other than that, though, if you're not a palm grip user, or you don't think you would care about it, then in general, the build quality is kind of just obviously better on the BeastX Mini overall. It feels like the more premium product, and that's embarrassing considering Final Mouse is supposedly a, the high tier mouse, the S tier, whatever. Somebody in my comments made a comment. Of course they did, but they left a comment that they're starting to think, or maybe they believe, I don't know. They said something about Final Mouse basically being a hypebeast brand, and I'm kind of inclined to agree with them in that Final Mouse is the hypebeast brand that's just does their marketing, and people know them, and a lot of people know them because it's like, oh, they have quality mice, whatever. But honestly, they charge a brand fee for that. And in my opinion, if we're judging purely based off value, hard for me to recommend the Final Mouse. Some things I do want to note though, and especially in my original video, I did also comment on, are that I don't know the super in-depth details in terms of firmware, in terms of click, latency. There's a lot of the nuances and sensor stuff that I don't know. So this is purely a review from a more amateur kind of mouse enthusiast, from personal feel more than actual tech. So if there's some people who can do the tech testing, and at least for me, I'm not that person, and I can only really tell you what it felt like the difference between was for me. So just kind of a just not technical review, kind of my just opinions from using it. Like I'm just a guy, you know what I mean? Like that's all there is to it. So yeah, let's compare every feature about the ULX versus the BeastX Mini, and I'll talk about it. So the biggest difference, in my opinion, besides the material feeling different, and like the coating and like whatever, besides that though, is in terms of practicalities, for me, it's going to be these side buttons. You can see the side buttons are actually differently placed. You can see the BeastX Minis are flat, so they're not like the ULX, which has a raised. They're a lot more flat. They're not 100% flat, but they're a lot more flat, and they're also in a completely different spot. Well, quote unquote different spot. They're a little bit lower, as you can see, and they're also smaller. And this is one thing that actually made me think, oh man, I might prefer the ULX Sakura, which I didn't want to, because I like everything else but the BeastX Mini way more than the ULX Sakura. But this is one thing I considered, because I'm a fingertip grip main. This is my preferred grip is something like this, and I got really concerned because I was like, oh, with the ULX Sakura, the not pressing the buttons is not a problem anymore, like at all. Like I can, you know what I mean? Like it's not in the way, and I kind of like that. I was like, oh, maybe I might like that. Turns out, I mean, I can't tell you which one I prefer more, but at the very least, when it comes to using these two different mice, I know overall I prefer this mice. I can't tell you yet whether I prefer like this where the buttons are up there, but I have a feeling I would slightly prefer that. But there's too many cons of this mouse that make me choose the B6 Mini or the ULX Sakura. So yeah, the side buttons, in terms of placement, kind of, you know, just kind of, I might prefer this one. I don't know. That's just my little thing, but you might not prefer it. You might not like these flat side buttons. So keep that in mind. Like these are a little bit harder to press because they're not protruding out as much. In my opinion, they're not really annoying to press at all. Like it's not like I noticed it, but these will be easier to press, the final mouse ones. So keep that in mind. They're also bigger, as you can see. And yeah, in terms of the click feeling, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. They feel a little bit tighter. The clicks on these, including the main clicks, feel a lot more. The ULXs feel a lot more tighter, and that's because they're mechanical switches. At least these are, while these are optical. And the similarity in feeling between the side buttons the side button feeling is relatively similar in terms of these feel like closer to the opticals, while these feel closer to mechanicals and tighter. So that's kind of preference. Though you can get mechanical switches on the B6 Mini, it was actually my preference to get the optical switches because I do prefer a lighter click. And while these are still very light, the Hawaiian blue shell pink dots, it is 100% lighter on the Omron. It is. I did the test in the original one. It is super obvious. Like I can very much easily press this one. Like when I was testing like this, yeah. Like I said, they're not heavy clicks by any means, but for me, I do like the lightest clicks possible, and I do prefer the B6 Minis a little bit more. So yeah, that's kind of my talk about the clicks. Also, what's it called, you know, not being able to, or very unlikely being able to have double clicks, nice thing. But I do understand that a lot of people might actually prefer the mechanical clicks. Here's a sound test really quickly. I think you can hear it at least. Hopefully my mic's not cutting it out. As you can see, I think a lot of people, including myself, actually prefer the sound and kind of the feel of the mechanical switches. Not by much though, and not enough to make me switch to them or rather prefer them. But I can definitely tell people would prefer these because these do have a very like satisfying like mechanical click. These aren't bad, they're just not quite the same. Overall, I still prefer the Omrons, but I still see a few things that the mechanical ones do better that I like more. So yeah, let's talk about that. I've never tried the mechanical switches on the B6 Mini, so I can't comment about that. The scroll wheel, in my opinion, there's no competition. I prefer the B6 Minis in practically every way. These basically has so little tactility and is super loose. While the B6 Mini is high tactility and has a lot of control, so you won't miss scroll. And that coupled alongside that, this has a rubber grip. Well, this one doesn't. This one's really annoying. It slips a lot compared to, at least for me, which is the rubber scroll wheel. So I do prefer the B6 Minis vastly a lot more. I also think it's actually a smaller scroll wheel. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't 100% like look, but it kind of felt that way. And I think I don't know. It also is fatter, as you can see. I don't know. I do like the B6 Minis more in general. I can't really comment up on every single thing about it, like the size of it versus what I prefer. But from what I can tell, I prefer the B6 Minis a lot more in general. The middle click is actually very different though. This is a silent middle click on the B6 Mini, while the middle click on the ULX Sakura is actually very loud. You can hear it. Mechanical switch, essentially. I don't know what to call this one, but it's like a silent switch. Like I said, I prefer the B6 Minis overall, but yeah. Anyways, what else is there to comment on? Let's see. The shape is practically identical. I think some people have been saying the ULX Sakura is a little bit taller. From ELO shapes, on ELO shapes, it says that the ULX is like 2 millimeters. I don't know which measurements. Just ever so slightly wider. To me, it felt a little taller. But it's hard to tell. It's so close where I'd really have to, like, you know what I mean? I can't tell the difference. I really can't. In terms of, like, if I had to compare the two. Feel-wise, it feels a little taller to me for some reason, just a little bit, but that might be placebo at that fact. But at the very least, we know that it is at least just a little bit wider, ever so slightly wider. So, probably won't make the difference overall, but to someone that might matter, I don't know. Anyways, what else is there to say? Let's see. Software. So, I can't speak on the technical side, like I said, the click latency, stuff like that. But what I can tell you from my experience with Xpanel versus the WL Mouse web page browser is it is embarrassing how bad Xpanel is. You can't even rebind this to a keyboard. You can't. I don't even know if you can rebind. You can't even do rebindings, at least from what I checked. I could be wrong, but when I first did it, I was like, you can't do. I was dumbfounded. Like you couldn't change anything, and I was like, what? And so it was a problem because when I switched between these two mice, I had this on M for a lot of games. I used that. Well, on here I didn't, so I'd either have to just start pressing M with my thumb, or I just have to rebind it again, which was just a pain in the ass. So I'm so disappointed with Xpanel. The only thing I could really say it's got going for it is maybe tournament scroll, and even then I didn't care enough to look at that, or I just didn't care about it. But if you, in my opinion, you're so much more likely to have this issue on here because it actually does get stuck in the middle. Well, the B6 Mini doesn't really have that problem. You'd have to be really trying for it in order to like get stuck in the middle. Like you would have to try. It's pretty hard to do it. So if you had just fixed it hardware wise, you wouldn't need the software fix anyways. Is kind of what I'm saying as well. And I'm just, yeah, the Xpanel was so disappointing. It was probably the first web-based browser, which was innovative for its time, but now it really just feels like it hasn't changed or anything like that, or it's just embarrassing. What else is there to say? So in my opinion, there's not even a competition, at least as far as I can tell on my side from a user experience perspective, is that the WL mouse one wins by a mile, like not even close, dude. It's like embarrassing, like how bad it was. It did the job. You had your DPI switch. You had tournament scroll, which is a little bit of a bonus feature. You had, I think, angle snap, some other stuff like that. But other than that, it was relatively fine, just nothing. It's what I'd expect from a brand that is a clone brand that is new to the game. Like, you know what I mean? It does the job, but it's missing features. But from Final Mouse, that is embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing, and I just don't understand how they messed it up that badly. Honestly, I kind of hope I'm wrong in that, like, maybe it was there and I didn't see it, or you have to, I don't know what I mean, you know what I mean? But from what I can tell, absolutely embarrassing. And yeah, so yeah, what else is there to really say? Also, I find it kind of funny how the print, I mean, I think you can see the quality in this mouse, like even the PCB is blue. And on here, I just noticed today, actually, if you look closely enough, you can see the paint kind of fades under it. And like there's like some, it's really hard to tell in this lighting, but like you can see what I mean? It's just not done well. And the PCB is also just black compared to what WL mouse does. At least is the PCB is light blue. Like, look at that. Versus here, where if you look through it, it's just black. You know what I mean? It's like embarrassing, just like how much of a hype beast brand you are and how mediocre your product is actually. This is my first Final Mouse, by the way. Just want to let you want to let you guys know that. So I've never had any experience with them. So this is my first one, and from their reputation, I expected a little bit more. I'm not gonna lie. You know, maybe wasn't expecting the world, but I was expecting not embarrassingly bad. I thought there would have been a competition between what I'd prefer, and it is, but not as much as it should be, especially if you consider the value add. That is, this is the cheaper mouse, and this is more expensive, and it's limited stock. You can't even buy it for the most part, and it's just kind of, you're kind of paying for the brand and whatnot. Yeah, it's like I said, it's kind of embarrassing. Other than that, though, I didn't have any problems with like sensor issues, stuff like that. I have a slight preference for this power switch right here versus here, but that's a very minor nitpick and a preference because I like doing this with my mouse. I like doing that with my thumb. While on here, it's more annoying too. It's a lot more annoying too. It's just annoying. Very minor preference though. Other than that, one thing I did want to notice that is actually a very significant difference for an enthusiast community, I guess, is that actually with mouse skates, with the B6 Mini, it has divots. It's not perfect. Like I said, I hate this random thing. I hate these random divots. But in general, the divots are fine. While on here, there's no divots at all, actually. There's just little outlines for where they recommend you put your skates. But other than that, they're not divots. This is all the same height. And so what I've noticed is on some pads, especially fabric pads, if you're using dot skates, you'll notice it for sure that like it'll hit the side of the mouse, like especially on a fabric pad. And the difference between them is noticeable. So I guess that's something to keep in mind. If you're using dot skates. And on glass pads, I would say they feel a little bit different too. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe that's why. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's why it feels taller. Is because the skates don't have a divot like this one does. So the mouse goes lower and this one goes higher. I didn't even think about that actually. Okay, well that could be the main reason. There you go. Is these have a little bit of divot, so therefore the skates go in more, and so it's lower, while the height is a little bit higher because there's no divots on here. I have a slight preference for these, especially because there's all these holes wherever right here, and to me it bothers me how these are basically not completely flat. These aren't perfect either, but you know what I mean, like you can see like there's so many, like the skates are just imbalanced that if you probably looked at the use, you'll see it's not perfectly flat. Same thing with these, but a lot more so with these, and that kind of bothers me. It's just a minor nitpick, but yeah. Oh, I don't like how you can flex this part down here. It's so embarrassing. Like just how badly this is. But yeah, that's gonna be my review of the ULX. And as you can see, I chose my B6 Mini back over it. In my opinion, in order for me to recommend the ULX over the B6 Mini, is if it was cheaper, and it's not. And so if it's cheaper, and I hope you guys understand that this is not actually saying the ULX is a bad mouse. In fact, it's not a bad mouse at all. In fact, it competes right next to my favorite mouse. So it's still a very good mouse. The problem is when you have a competitor this close to you, you really do have to look at this comparison. On its own, the ULX is a good mouse and I like it, but it's not in a vacuum and it's surrounded by competition like the B6 Mini. And in that sense, it's kind of weaker on so many fronts. It's hard to recommend at all. Yeah, but in order to me, I guess, to recommend it, it would have to be cheaper, like $120 at the highest point. And it's the other way around. By like $40, by the way. It's embarrassing. It really is. But yeah. So let's see, the major significance difference, in my opinion, if you're picking up either of these mice and you're still, I don't know if you're still considering the ULX, the biggest difference, in my opinion, is the side button placement. Because on here, you will have it closer to your thumb like this. It doesn't bother me enough. I still prefer this mouse over it, but keep in mind, like for me, like you can see how much more space I have for my thumb is, and it's just like it's not affecting my grip, my aim as much. Well, on the B6 Mini, it's a little bit. Thankfully, these buttons are flat, which is one thing I praise the B6 Mini for, and that I did prefer that. That helps me a lot in terms of if these were not flat, this would really bother me essentially. But that problem is just kind of limited on here. So that's one thing. That's the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest difference in terms of feel-wise of use between these two. All obviously the coding as well, but in my opinion, there's no significant difference between the coding. The coding is kind of meh on both of them, honestly. Yeah, but they feel different. I don't explain it to you. They feel a little bit. This one feels a bit like plastic, I suppose. I don't explain it. And what's it called? The textures, the engravings. Yeah, the engravings in here. You don't notice them really. They're very not significant at all. You can feel them if you try, and if you really try metagame, you can probably feel them. But what I'm saying is, like, I forgot about them immediately, like not even like thought about it for a moment, basically. So yeah, biggest difference in my opinion, side buttons, and I guess obviously the build quality and whatnot. But I mean, in terms of practical real world use for my fingertip grip, the biggest difference I noticed were the side buttons, as well as the skates. Actually, was a relatively big difference in terms of feel. It makes this mouse feel a little bit taller, and also for some pads, especially fabric pads, it's better for dot skates because it doesn't. Yeah, but that's if you're using dot skates. Even then, you can use more dot skates on here. I don't know, just something to keep note of. You might need to use something that raises the heights of them, like the G-Wolf seems to provide little height increasers. That might actually be useful and needed for something like this. So that's something that's got going for it. But other than that, I'll be honest, I kind of hate it. I kind of hate the ULX mostly because of their brand reputation and everything else around it. But like I said, this is one part this is missing in my review. It's missing the in-depth tech testing, firmware testing. So by technicality, the ULX might be better in terms of click latency and some other things. But from personal use, it's not a competition. But from the tech perspective, I don't know for sure. And I guess that's really all I have to say. The dongle's obviously different, but I mean, in terms of practical use, they're mostly the same. I do prefer the B6 Minis because it's just cuter in my opinion and more aesthetic. But I mean, that's a completely preference. And yeah, honestly, I just realized they really could have just made this pink. That's really sad that they didn't even make this pink. Now that I think about it, wow. I didn't even think about that entirely, but that's like depressing. Anyways, that's kind of what I'm saying. ULX Final Mouse seems to be a hypebeast brand. Their mice aren't bad, they're just really overpriced, and I'm a little disappointed just because of the competition is so much better. But in a vacuum, the ULX is a great mouse. You probably didn't expect me to say that, or at least it doesn't feel like you expect me to say that after everything I'm saying. But the ULX is a great mouse. It comes pretty close to the B6 Mini. There's just many reasons why, but in general, it's still a very great mouse. It weighs practically the same, I think, as the B6 Mini. The feel is great too. The blue shell pink dot switch. If if you're the type of person that cares about clicks a lot, you're gonna get you're not gonna get, but you actually might prefer the ULX just because of the blue shell pink dots. Well, these don't have blue shell pink dots. They have opticals or a different mechanical switch. I don't remember what they are. But I don't know. If you care about switches, the number one priority, then you actually might rather have the ULX Sakura. But yeah, in so many other ways, I told you my preference. Yeah. Oh, also, I just realized the scroll wheel is higher. I didn't even realize that the scroll wheel is higher, or maybe it's bigger. No, it's definitely higher on the ULX. I never even thought about that. Yeah, I do prefer it back here more. I didn't even realize that. Maybe that's what it also felt like. I didn't even notice that. Okay, I do prefer the B6 minis, but yeah. Okay, anyways, that's going to be my full review on the ULX Sakura and my kind of comparison between the B6 Mini. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, agreements, disagreements, feel free to leave down in the comments below. If you guys want to see more videos on similar mice, fingertip grip mice, literally anything like this, other brand mice, I did a review on the Corsair Zebra V2, should be coming out or should already be out, then feel free to like and sub. But that's totally up to you whether you do or not. So yeah, that's going to be my video. A lot to say for just mice that are practically identical in many ways, but that's what you get when you jump down the rabbit hole. All right, that's gonna be it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Peace.